The burgundy tie felt like a noose around my neck as I adjusted it one final time in the bathroom mirror. Jennifer stood behind me, applying lipstick with the precision of a surgeon. Her red dress hugged curves I'd once worshipped, now barely noticing as my mind wandered to the quarterly server reports waiting on my desk. "You ready, honey?" she asked, dropping the lipstick into her clutch. Douglas said the open bar starts at 6:30. Douglas? Her boss? The man she mentioned roughly 17 times per conversation lately. I nodded, grabbing my keys from the dresser. "Let's get this over with." The Regional Insurance Group's annual Christmas party was held at the Grand View Hotel downtown, the same ballroom where they'd hosted it for the past 8 years. 200 employees, their spouses, and enough alcohol to float a small yacht. I'd attended every single one since joining the IT department, watching the same people get progressively drunker while making the same small talk about quarterly projections and vacation plans. Jennifer's heels clicked against the marble floor as we entered the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables draped in white linens, each centerpiece a tasteful arrangement of red poinsettias and gold ribbons. A DJ played holiday classics from a corner stage while servers circulated with champagne flutes and appetizers. "Michael, Jennifer," Patricia Mills, our HR director, approached with her trademark professional smile. "So glad you could make it. The CEO just arrived. I think this might be our best turnout yet." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, accepting a champagne flute from a passing server. Jennifer had already grabbed 2 glasses of wine, finishing the first before we'd even found our assigned table. "Pace yourself," I murmured, as we located table 12. "It's not even 7 o'clock. It's a party, Michael. Lighten up." She scanned the room until her eyes landed on a tall figure near the bar. "Oh, there's Douglas. I should say hello." Before I could respond, she was weaving through tables toward the marketing department's corner of the room. I watched her approach Douglas Kane, mid-40s, silver-haired, the kind of confident swagger that came from 15 years of climbing corporate ladders. He turned as she approached, his face lighting up with a smile that seemed too warm for a professional greeting. "Michael Patterson, right?" A voice beside me interrupted my observation. Tom Bradley from accounting settled into the adjacent chair, followed by his wife Susan. "How's the server migration project going?" "Ahead of schedule, actually. Should be completed by February." I forced my attention back to the conversation, though my peripheral vision tracked Jennifer's animated gestures as she talked with Douglas. "The new backup systems are testing well." "That's great news. I know Robert was concerned about downtime during tax season." Robert Hayes, our CEO, commanded attention from the head table. At 62, he'd built regional insurance from a 12-person operation into one of the state's largest independent agencies. His presence meant this party mattered. Careers could be made or broken based on tonight's impressions. Jennifer returned to our table as the servers began distributing salad courses, settling into her chair with a fresh glass of wine. Her third in 30 minutes. "Douglas says the marketing campaign for our new commercial policies exceeded projections by 18%, she announced, as if this were breaking news rather than information that had been circulated in last week's departmental email. "That's good," I replied, cutting into my salad. "Did he mention the client retention numbers?" "We didn't get into specifics." She drained half her wine glass. "He's such a brilliant strategist. Really understands the insurance landscape." Tom and Susan exchanged glances. In 8 years of marriage, Jennifer had never shown the slightest interest in insurance beyond the paycheck it provided. Now she spoke about market penetration and client acquisition like she was pursuing an MBA. The evening progressed through the typical corporate party rhythm: dinner, speeches, award presentations. I accepted polite congratulations for the IT department's system upgrades, while Jennifer visited the bar with increasing frequency. By the time dessert arrived, her words had developed a slight slur. "I'm going to powder my nose," she announced, standing with the careful precision of someone fighting gravity. Douglas Kane rose from his table simultaneously, making the same excuse to his companions. The coincidence felt deliberate. I waited 5 minutes before excusing myself, following signs toward the restrooms down a carpeted hallway lined with hotel artwork. Voices drifted from an alcove near the emergency exit, a secluded area with 2 leather chairs and a decorative plant arrangement. Can't keep doing this here, Douglas was saying. Too many people. I know, but I've been thinking about you all week. Jennifer's voice carried a breathless quality I hadn't heard in years. Michael doesn't understand me like you do. My stomach dropped as I pressed against the wall, staying out of sight while processing what I was hearing. You're incredible, Jen, but we have to be smart about this. I don't want to be smart. I want to be with you. The sound of shifting fabric, then silence. I risked a glance around the corner and felt the world tilt sideways. Douglas had Jennifer pressed against the wall, their lips locked in a kiss that spoke of practiced familiarity. Her fingers tangled in his hair, while his hands explored territory that belonged to me. My phone was in my hand before conscious thought took over. Video recording activated with muscle memory born from years of documenting server errors and system failures. The camera captured everything. Jennifer's wine-flushed face, Douglas's wandering hands, the unmistakable intimacy between them. God, I want you, Jennifer whispered when they broke apart. When can we be together again? Soon, I promise. Douglas straightened his tie. We should get back before people notice. They separated, Jennifer returning first while Douglas lingered to compose himself. I remained hidden until he passed, then walked back to the ballroom with footage that had just destroyed my marriage. The party continued around me, oblivious to the nuclear bomb I carried in my pocket. Jennifer had returned to our table, touching up her lipstick and chatting with Susan about holiday shopping plans. Douglas worked the room like the professional he was, shaking hands and making small talk with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, including my wife. The rage built slowly, like pressure in a boiler. I watched Douglas laugh at Robert Hayes' story about his grandson's soccer team. I watched Jennifer finish her 6th glass of wine while complaining about the hotel's choice of dessert wine. I watched 200 people enjoy their holiday celebration while my 18-year marriage disintegrated in my pocket. At 9:30, the DJ announced the final song of the evening. Couples migrated to the small dance floor for traditional slow dances while others began gathering coats and purses. Jennifer swayed in her chair, wine having progressed from social lubrication to obvious intoxication. Ready to go home? I asked, though home felt like a foreign concept now. In a minute. She waved toward Douglas, who was saying goodbye to colleagues near the bar. I want to thank Douglas for including me in the Hartley insurance presentation. The lie came so easily it was clearly practiced. Jennifer hadn't been involved in any client presentations. Her role was limited to creating marketing materials and scheduling meetings, but she stood with determined focus, navigating between tables toward her lover. That's when the decision crystallized. I pulled out my phone, connected to the ballroom's Wi-Fi network, and accessed the hotel's audio-visual system. The same technology we used for quarterly presentations was about to serve a very different purpose. Douglas and Jennifer stood near the bar, their conversation animated despite the noise around them. She touched his arm while laughing at something he'd said, the gesture intimate and familiar. He leaned closer, whispering something that made her smile with an expression I hadn't seen in years. The DJ's microphone was still active. I stood, walking purposefully toward the small stage where the equipment was located. The DJ was packing his gear, paying no attention as I plugged my phone into the sound system's input jack. Excuse me, everyone. My voice echoed through the ballroom speakers, cutting through conversations and bringing 200 pairs of eyes in my direction. I have something I'd like to share with you all. The room quieted, assuming this was some kind of impromptu thank you speech or announcement. Robert Hayes looked mildly curious from the head table, while Patricia Mills frowned with the expression of someone sensing trouble. My name is Michael Patterson, and I work in IT here at Regional Insurance. I held up my phone, ensuring everyone could see the device. Tonight I discovered something I think you should all witness. Jennifer's face had gone pale, her wine-addled brain struggling to process what was happening. Douglas stepped away from her slightly, corporate instincts recognizing danger. Here's my wife and her boss making out while the company pays the bill. I pressed play. The video filled the ballroom's projection screen in high definition. Jennifer's wine-flushed face appeared 20 feet tall, her lips locked with Douglas Kane's in unmistakable passion. Their whispered conversation played through the sound system with crystal clarity. I've been thinking about you all week. You're incredible, Jen. I don't want to be smart. I want to be with you. The room erupted in gasps, murmurs, and the scraping of chairs as people turned to stare at the real-life Jennifer and Douglas. Jennifer covered her face with her hands, swaying as the alcohol and humiliation combined to overwhelm her system. Douglas stood frozen, his face cycling through shock, anger, and damage control calculations. Jesus Christ, someone whispered from table 3. Patricia Mills was already moving, her heels clicking rapidly across the ballroom floor as she approached the stage. Michael, please turn that off. I think everyone should see what kind of people they work with, I replied, letting the video continue. The kissing scene played again as I'd set it to loop, Jennifer's voice echoing through the speakers. When can we be together again? Robert Hayes had risen from his chair, his face dark with the kind of anger that ended careers. 3 members of the executive team flanked him, their expressions ranging from disgust to professional calculation. Turn it off now, Patricia commanded, reaching for my phone. I disconnected it before she could confiscate the device, though the damage was already done. 200 witnesses had seen everything. Jennifer stumbled toward the stage, tears streaming down her face. Michael, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I stepped down from the stage, pocketing my phone. I understand that my wife has been sleeping with her boss. I understand that everyone here just witnessed it. And I understand that my marriage is over. Douglas finally found his voice. This is a misunderstanding. Jennifer and I were just having an affair, I finished. We all saw it, Douglas. Everyone in this room knows what you've been doing. The ballroom had divided into spectators and participants, with most employees creating distance from the central drama. Conversations buzzed as people processed what they'd witnessed, phones appearing as the gossip network activated. This is highly inappropriate, Robert Hayes announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to controlling situations. Patricia, handle this immediately. Mr. Patterson, I need you to come with me, Patricia said, gesturing toward the hallway. We need to discuss this privately. There's nothing private about it anymore. I looked around the room, making eye contact with colleagues I'd worked alongside for 8 years. Everyone here knows the truth now. Jennifer reached me as hotel security appeared at the ballroom entrances, clearly summoned by hotel management. Her makeup had run, creating dark streaks down her cheeks, and she swayed as she grabbed my arm. Please, honey, let me explain. I was drunk, it didn't mean anything. Don't. I pulled away from her grip. Don't you dare blame the alcohol. I heard everything you said to him. Mr. Patterson, a security guard approached with professional courtesy. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me. I'm leaving. I straightened my jacket, maintaining what dignity remained. But understand this. Everyone here witnessed what kind of woman I married and what kind of manager this company employs. As security escorted me toward the exit, I caught glimpses of the chaos left behind. Douglas was surrounded by executives, their body language suggesting his evening had taken an even worse turn than mine. Jennifer stood alone near the bar, abandoned by colleagues who suddenly found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. The last thing I heard before the ballroom doors closed was Robert Hayes' voice. Patricia, my office first thing Monday morning. We have a situation to handle. The December air hit like a slap as I exited the hotel, my breath visible in small clouds while I waited for the valet to retrieve my car. Through the ballroom windows, I could see the party's aftermath, employees gathering coats and purses while steal glances toward where Jennifer still stood, isolated and humiliated. My phone buzzed with text messages as word spread beyond the ballroom walls. 8 years of professional relationships, all witnessing the destruction of my personal life in real time. The video would be corporate legend within days, a cautionary tale about workplace ethics and personal boundaries. The valet handed me my keys with sympathetic eyes. Word had clearly reached the hotel staff. I slipped him a $20 tip and climbed into my car, sitting for a moment in the driver's seat while processing what had just happened. 18 years of marriage had ended in a hotel ballroom with 200 witnesses. My wife's career at Regional Insurance was finished, along with her boss's. The video evidence was irrefutable, the professional consequences inevitable. But as I drove home through empty streets decorated with Christmas lights, one thought dominated all others. Jennifer would follow me home, and the real confrontation was yet to come. The house felt different when I unlocked the front door 30 minutes later. Same furniture, same family photos on the mantle, same Christmas tree we decorated together last weekend. But the foundation had shifted, making everything familiar seem foreign and temporary. I loosened my tie and walked to the kitchen, pouring 3 fingers of bourbon into a crystal tumbler Jennifer had given me for our 15th anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me as I raised the glass in a mock toast to our shattered marriage. Headlights swept across the living room windows 20 minutes later, followed by the sound of Jennifer's car door slamming with unnecessary force. Her key rattled in the lock before she stumbled inside, still wearing the red dress that had helped seduce her boss. "Michael," she called, her voice thick with wine and tears. "Honey, we need to talk." I remained in my chair, bourbon warming in my hand as she appeared in the doorway. The confident woman who'd left for the party had been replaced by someone desperate and calculating, her eyes darting around the room like she was searching for weapons or escape routes. "That was humiliating," she said, settling onto the couch with the careful movements of someone still fighting intoxication. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone we work with." "I embarrassed you?" I set down my glass, maintaining calm through sheer force of will. "You're sleeping with your boss and I embarrassed you? It's not what you think." The words came out rehearsed, like she'd practiced them during the drive home. "Douglas and I have a professional relationship. We got carried away tonight because of the wine, but it doesn't mean anything." I pulled out my phone, opened the video, and placed it on the coffee table between us. "Want to watch it again?" "I recorded the whole conversation, Jennifer. Every word." Her face went pale as she stared at the device. "You can't use that. It's invasion of privacy." "In a public hotel hallway? At a company function with 200 witnesses?" I picked up the phone, scrolling to the most damning section. "Should I play the part where you say you've been thinking about him all week? Or maybe where you ask when you can be together again?" I was drunk. She wrapped her arms around herself, the red dress now looking cheap and desperate. "People say things when they're drunk that they don't mean." "How long?" The question came out quieter than I'd intended, but it carried years of accumulated suspicion. "How long have you been sleeping with him?" "I'm not sleeping with him." But her eyes couldn't meet mine, and the lie hung in the air like smoke. We've gotten close lately. He understands things about my career that you don't." "Try again." I finished my bourbon, the alcohol doing nothing to dull the rage building in my chest. "How long, Jennifer?" She was quiet for several minutes, staring at her hands while calculating how much truth she could afford to reveal. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. 3 months. But it's not what you think. We've only kissed a few times. And talked. He listens to me, Michael. He makes me feel important. 3 months. 90 days of lies. Of her coming home late from client meetings and marketing conferences. 90 days of me trusting the woman I'd married while she planned a future with another man. Important enough to destroy our marriage? Our marriage was already dying. The accusation hit like a physical blow, but she continued with wine-fueled honesty. "When's the last time we really talked? When's the last time you looked at me like I mattered? Douglas sees potential in me that you've never recognized. Douglas is married. His marriage is complicated." She stood, pacing to the window and back. "His wife doesn't understand his ambitions. They've been growing apart for years." I almost laughed at the cliché of it all. "Did he tell you that?" "Let me guess. They're staying together for the kids?" "There are things about his situation you don't understand. I understand that he's a 45-year-old manager who seduced his subordinate with promises he has no intention of keeping." I stood, walking to the Christmas tree where our wedding photo sat among the ornaments. "I understand that you believed him because you wanted to." "This isn't just about him." Jennifer's voice rose, anger replacing the defensive tone. "This is about us, Michael. About how we've been living like roommates for the past 2 years. When's the last time you surprised me with anything? When's the last time you made me feel desired? When's the last time you gave me a reason to?" The words escaped before I could stop them, honest and brutal. "You've been distant and critical for months. Now I know why. So this is my fault? You're the one who decided to solve our problems by sleeping with your boss instead of talking to your husband. She sank back onto the couch, the fight draining out of her as quickly as it had appeared. I never meant for this to happen. Douglas and I were working late on the Hartley presentation, and he said I had real talent for strategic thinking. No one's ever said that to me before. I've been telling you that for 8 years. No, you've been telling me I'm good at organizing files and scheduling meetings. There's a difference. She looked up at me with eyes that seemed genuinely confused. Douglas sees leadership potential in me. He thinks I could run my own department someday. And all it cost was your marriage and your integrity. I was going to tell you. The lie came out weak and unconvincing. After the holidays, I was going to ask for a separation so we could figure things out. How considerate. I walked back to the kitchen, needing distance from her presence. Were you planning to mention Douglas in that conversation? This isn't just about him, she called after me. This is about us growing apart, about wanting different things. I returned with the bourbon bottle, refilling my glass with steady hands. What does Douglas want, Jennifer? Really? He wants someone who challenges him intellectually, someone who shares his vision for growth and success. She smoothed her dress, trying to reclaim some dignity. He says I have instincts for market analysis that could take me far in this industry. He's 45 years old with a wife and 2 kids. He's not leaving them for a marketing assistant who thinks she's discovered her calling. You don't know him like I do. I know exactly who he is. I sat back down, maintaining eye contact. He's a middle management predator who identified an unhappy wife and told her everything she wanted to hear. And you fell for it because it was easier than working on our problems. That's not fair? Fair? I laughed, a sound devoid of humor. You've been lying to me for 3 months. You humiliated me in front of 200 colleagues tonight. And you're talking about fair? I never wanted to hurt you. But you did it anyway. We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 18 years pressing down on both of us. The Christmas tree lights blinked in their programmed sequence, cheerful and oblivious to the destruction around them. What happens now? Jennifer asked finally. Now you move into the guest room while I contact a divorce attorney. Michael, please, can't we try counseling? Can't we work through this? Work through what? Your affair? Your lies? Your complete betrayal of everything we built together? People make mistakes. Marriages survive infidelity all the time. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling to the video. This wasn't a mistake, Jennifer. This was a choice. Multiple choices, made over 3 months, while you lied to my face every single day. I know you're angry. I'm not angry. The realization surprised me as I said it. I'm done. There's a difference. She stared at me for a long moment, perhaps recognizing something final in my tone. When she spoke again, her voice carried a note of desperation I'd never heard before. We can start over. I'll quit regional insurance, find another job. We can move somewhere fresh, away from all this. And Douglas? The question hung between us like a blade. Jennifer's silence provided the answer I'd expected. You can't have both, I said quietly. You can't keep your lover and save your marriage. You can't undo what happened tonight. 200 people saw you with him, Jennifer. The video is already spreading through the company. The video. Her voice turned sharp. You can delete that. Tell people it was fake or taken out of context. No. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, I won't help you cover this up. No, I won't protect you from the consequences of your choices. And no, I won't pretend this never happened. She stood again, this time with purpose. You're going to destroy my career over this? You destroyed your own career. I just documented it. Douglas was right about you. The words came out venomous, designed to wound. He said you were small-minded and jealous. He said you'd never understand what we have. What you had, I corrected. Because after tonight, Douglas Kane is finished at Regional Insurance. And so are you. You don't know that. I know Robert Hayes. I know the company's ethics policies. And I know that video is going to be on every employee's phone by Monday morning. I finished my bourbon and set the glass down with finality. Your relationship with Douglas just became a liability the company can't afford. Jennifer sank back onto the couch, the full scope of her situation finally becoming clear. In one night, she'd lost her marriage, her career, and quite possibly her lover as well. I need to call Douglas. He won't answer. I stood, heading toward the stairs. He's probably meeting with corporate lawyers right now, figuring out how to minimize the damage to his own career. You don't know him. I know exactly who he is. And by Monday morning, so will his wife. That stopped her cold. You wouldn't. I wouldn't have to. After tonight's performance, she'll hear about it from someone at the company. Probably multiple people. I climbed the stairs, leaving Jennifer alone with the ruins of her carefully constructed fantasy. From the master bedroom, I could hear her making phone calls. First to Douglas, who apparently wasn't answering, then to her sister in California. Lisa, it's me. Something terrible has happened. I closed the bedroom door and began packing a suitcase. Not for myself. This was my house, bought with my credit and my down payment 3 years before we married. But Jennifer would need somewhere to go while we sorted out the divorce, and her sister had always been the family member who specialized in enabling poor decisions. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues who'd witnessed the evening's events. Word was spreading through Regional Insurance's employee network at viral speed, the story growing more dramatic with each retelling. Tom Bradley. Holy shit, Mike. Are you okay? Sandra from HR. Can we talk Monday? This is a delicate situation. Dave Martinez from IT. Saw what happened. Need anything, just call. The support was gratifying, but it also meant my personal life had become company-wide entertainment. Monday morning would bring curious glances, whispered conversations, and the kind of attention I'd spent 8 years avoiding. But there was no avoiding it now. The video had made my humiliation public, but it had also made Jennifer's betrayal undeniable. Whatever happened next, everyone would know exactly who was responsible for destroying our marriage. I heard Jennifer's voice through the bedroom door, still on the phone with her sister. The conversation had progressed from explanation to justification, her tone becoming defensive as she tried to rewrite tonight's events into something more palatable. It's not that simple, Lisa. Michael has been emotionally distant for months, and Douglas really understands my career goals. The lies continued, but they were no longer my problem. In 18 hours, I'd be sitting in a divorce attorney's office, beginning the legal process of ending our marriage. The financial implications would be significant. Virginia was a no-fault divorce state, meaning Jennifer's adultery wouldn't affect property division or alimony calculations. But some things mattered more than money. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, with freezing rain coating the roads and a thin layer of ice that made the 30-minute drive to downtown dangerous and slow. I'd spent the weekend researching divorce attorneys, settling on Sarah Kim based on her reputation for handling high-conflict cases with minimal drama. Her office occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower overlooking the James River, the kind of space that radiated competence and discretion. Sarah herself was exactly what I'd expected from her website photo. Mid-40s, impeccably dressed, with the direct manner of someone who'd heard every possible variation of marital destruction. Mr. Patterson, she gestured to a leather chair across from her mahogany desk. I reviewed the materials you sent over. This is certainly an unusual situation. That's one way to put it. I settled into the chair, noting the box of tissues positioned strategically on the side table. How unusual. Public infidelity at a company function, recorded on video and broadcast to 200 witnesses? She consulted her notes. In 15 years of family law, this is a first. What are the implications? Legally, minimal. Virginia is a no-fault divorce state, which means your wife's adultery doesn't affect property division, spousal support, or custody arrangements. She leaned back in her chair. Practically, that's more complicated. Explain. The video evidence is certainly compelling, but adultery requires proof of sexual intercourse, not just kissing and emotional intimacy. What you recorded would be difficult to use in court, even if we were in a fault-based jurisdiction. I'd expected this, but hearing it confirmed still stung. So she gets half of everything regardless of what she did? Unless there are other factors, hidden assets, financial misconduct, unusual circumstances that would justify an unequal distribution. Sarah consulted her file again. Tell me about your finances. Property, investments, retirement accounts. The next hour was spent cataloging 18 years of accumulated wealth. The house, purchased before marriage but significantly improved with marital funds. 2 retirement accounts, both maxed out annually. A modest investment portfolio managed through my company's financial advisor. No significant debts beyond the mortgage. Total marital assets of approximately $400,000, Sarah concluded. Standard division would give each spouse $200,000, minus attorney fees and court costs. And there's nothing I can do about that? You could fight for a larger share based on her misconduct, but the legal costs would likely exceed any additional amount you might recover. She set down her pen. Mr. Patterson, I need to ask, what are you hoping to accomplish with this divorce? I want my life back. I want her out of my house, and I want this finished as quickly as possible. Revenge? Justice would be nice, but I'll settle for freedom. Sarah nodded approvingly. That's a healthy perspective. Clients who focus on punishing their ex-spouses usually end up paying more in legal fees than they recover in additional assets. What about the video? Can she force me to delete it? Probably not. You recorded it in a public space, at a company function, with no expectation of privacy. She could try to claim harassment if you distribute it further, but the damage is already done. Good. I stood, ready to begin the process of dismantling my marriage. What do I need to do? I'll prepare the paperwork this week. Petition for divorce, asset disclosure forms, temporary support calculations. She walked me to the door. One more question. Do you think your wife will contest this? She'll try to negotiate, but she doesn't have much leverage. Famous last words, Sarah replied with a knowing smile. Spouses facing public humiliation sometimes make irrational decisions. Be prepared for anything. The drive back to regional insurance took me through downtown streets lined with Christmas decorations that seemed mockingly cheerful. My phone had buzzed constantly throughout the weekend, with messages from colleagues, friends, and family members who'd heard about Friday night's incident through the company grapevine. The parking garage felt different as I pulled into my assigned space, knowing that my personal life had become corporate entertainment. The elevator ride to the 5th floor was mercifully empty, but I could feel curious glances as I walked through the IT department toward my office. Michael. Dave Martinez appeared at my cubicle before I'd even settled into my chair. How are you holding up? I've been better. I powered up my computer, noting 17 new emails since Friday afternoon. Any word about Friday night? Patricia Mills has been in meetings with the executives all morning. Word is that Douglas Kane got terminated for cause. The news should have provided satisfaction, but it felt hollow. What about Jennifer? Haven't heard anything official, but she called in sick today. Dave lowered his voice. Tom Bradley said she was calling people over the weekend trying to do damage control. Too late for that. Michael. Patricia Mills appeared at my cubicle entrance, her expression carefully neutral. Could I see you in my office? The HR department occupied prime real estate on the 3rd floor, with Patricia's corner office offering views of the downtown skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. She gestured to a chair across from her desk while closing the door behind us. I want to discuss Friday night's incident. What about it? Your decision to broadcast that video was problematic, from both a professional and personal perspective. I leaned back in my chair, studying her expression. Are you saying I shouldn't have exposed my wife's affair? I'm saying that using company equipment to humiliate 2 employees in front of 200 colleagues created liability issues we're still assessing. Company equipment? The hotel's audio-visual system is rented by regional insurance for these events. Technically, you used company resources to broadcast personal content. Personal content that documented workplace misconduct. Patricia sighed, the sound of someone dealing with complications she hadn't anticipated. Michael, I understand you were upset, but there were better ways to handle this situation. Such as? Coming to me privately, letting us investigate the relationship through proper channels, following established procedures for workplace ethics violations. And how long would that have taken? Weeks? Months? While they continued their affair? We would have handled it appropriately. The way you handled whatever complaints were filed about Douglas Kane before this? That hit home. Patricia's expression tightened slightly. What do you mean? A married supervisor seducing his subordinate doesn't happen overnight. There were probably signs, complaints, incidents that HR chose to overlook. I leaned forward. How many other women has Douglas targeted over the years? I can't discuss personnel matters. You're discussing mine. Because your actions Friday night created a public relations crisis that extends far beyond your personal situation. She opened a file folder on her desk. The video has been shared throughout the company, posted on social media, and discussed in industry forums. Our reputation for professional workplace standards has been damaged. By my wife's affair with her boss, not by my decision to document it. By the public nature of the exposure, by turning a private matter into corporate entertainment. I stood, recognizing that this conversation was heading toward disciplinary action. Are you reprimanding me for revealing workplace misconduct? I'm asking you to consider the broader implications of your choices. The broader implications were considered Friday night. 200 witnesses saw exactly what kind of people they work with. That's not my problem to solve. It becomes your problem if it affects your employment here. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. I looked out the window at the gray December sky, processing the reality that my career at Regional Insurance might be another casualty of Jennifer's affair. Are you firing me, Patricia? I'm suggesting that discretion moving forward would benefit everyone involved. Meaning? No more videos, no more public statements about Friday night's events, no further discussion of this matter with colleagues or clients. And if I refuse, then we'll need to evaluate whether your continued employment is compatible with the company's professional standards. I almost laughed at the irony. The company that employed Douglas Kane and my wife for their 3-month affair is questioning my professional standards? Douglas Kane has been terminated. Your wife has submitted her resignation. The news hit like a physical blow. Jennifer quit? Effective immediately. She cited personal reasons and waived her notice period. When? This morning. She called Robert Hayes directly and requested immediate release from her employment contract. I sat back down, processing this development. Jennifer's resignation meant she was running. From the company, from the consequences, probably from Douglas Kane as well. Where is she going? I can't discuss. She's my wife, Patricia. I have a right to know her employment status. She didn't provide forwarding information, just requested that her final paycheck be mailed to your home address. My home address, which meant she was still living in our house, at least temporarily. The conversation with Sarah Kim suddenly felt more urgent. If Jennifer was planning to disappear, I needed to protect my assets before she could claim her share and vanish. Is there anything else? I asked. Just the understanding that discretion moving forward serves everyone's interests. Including Douglas Kane's? Douglas Kane is no longer a company concern. I stood again, recognizing the dismissal. I understand the message, Patricia. No more videos, no more public statements. But I won't apologize for exposing workplace misconduct, and I won't pretend Friday night didn't happen. That's all I'm asking. The elevator ride back to the 5th floor felt longer than usual, weighted with the knowledge that my marriage, my wife's career, and possibly my own job had all been casualties of one night's revelation. The IT department buzzed with subdued activity, colleagues glancing up as I passed but avoiding direct eye contact. How did it go? Dave asked when I reached my desk. Jennifer resigned. Douglas was fired. I'm on thin ice. Jesus. He looked around the office, ensuring we weren't overheard. What are you going to do? Finish this divorce and move on. The afternoon passed in a blur of routine tasks and carefully neutral interactions with colleagues. Word of Jennifer's resignation spread through the company by 3 o'clock, followed by speculation about her whereabouts and future plans. No one had seen her since Friday night's incident, and her usual lunch companions reported that she wasn't answering calls or text messages. By 5:30, the office had largely emptied for the evening commute. I remained at my desk, reviewing system logs and security reports while avoiding the prospect of returning home to whatever confrontation awaited. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at O'Malley's at 7. Douglas. The message felt like a trap, but curiosity overrode caution. O'Malley's was an Irish pub downtown, far enough from regional insurance to avoid colleagues, but public enough to prevent anything stupid from happening. I arrived at 6:45, claiming a corner booth with clear sightlines to both entrances. Douglas Kane entered precisely at 7, looking haggard and desperate in a way that suggested his weekend had been even worse than mine. Michael. He slid into the opposite booth without invitation. Thanks for coming. I almost didn't. The waitress approached, and Douglas ordered a double whiskey while I stuck with coffee. We sat in awkward silence until the drinks arrived, each man studying the other across 18 years of workplace familiarity. You destroyed my life, he said finally. You destroyed your own life. I just documented it. That video shows exactly what happened. No more, no less. Douglas drank half his whiskey in one swallow, the alcohol doing nothing to improve his appearance. My wife left me, took the kids to her mother's house, won't answer my calls. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Because it seems like you got exactly what you wanted. What I wanted was a faithful wife. What I got was evidence of her betrayal. I leaned forward. What do you want, Douglas? I want that video deleted. I want you to tell people it was fake or taken out of context or something. No. My career is finished. 20 years in insurance and I can't get a phone interview anywhere in the state. That's what happens when you sleep with your subordinates. It wasn't like that. He finished his whiskey and signaled for another. Jennifer and I have a real connection. We understand each other in ways that… Stop. I held up a hand. I don't want to hear about your connection with my wife. She's special, Michael. She has instincts for strategic thinking that could take her far in this industry. She's a marketing assistant with a community college degree who fell for your bullshit because you told her what she wanted to hear. You never appreciated her potential. And you never intended to leave your wife for her. That hit home. Douglas's expression shifted, revealing the calculating man beneath the desperate FA-aide. My situation is complicated. Your situation is finished. Jennifer knows that, which is why she resigned and disappeared rather than wait for you to abandon her. She didn't disappear. She's staying with her sister in California while she figures out her next move, which doesn't include you. We're working through some issues. You're delusional. I stood, tossing a $10 bill on the table. Your wife left you, your career is over, and Jennifer is 3,000 miles away pretending your relationship never happened. This isn't over, Michael. Yes, it is. Friday night ended everything for all of us. The only question now is how much dignity we salvage from the wreckage. I left him at the table with his whiskey and his delusions, walking out into the December cold with the satisfaction of knowing I'd chosen correctly. Douglas Kane was a predator who destroyed his own life through arrogance and stupidity. Jennifer was a woman who'd traded 18 years of marriage for 3 months of fantasy, and I was finally free of both of them. The divorce proceedings took 6 weeks, expedited by Jennifer's absence and her apparent desire to settle quickly rather than fight for additional assets. Sarah Kim handled the paperwork with professional efficiency, ensuring that I kept the house in exchange for giving Jennifer slightly more than half of our liquid assets. She's being reasonable, Sarah observed during our final meeting. Usually that means she wants this finished before something else comes to light. Such as credit card debt, hidden expenses, anything that might complicate the settlement. She slid the final documents across her desk. She also waived spousal support, which is unusual given the length of your marriage. Guilt, probably. Or she's planning to disappear completely. Either way, you're getting a favorable outcome. The house is worth more than her share of the financial assets, especially with the improvements you've made over the years. I signed the papers with the same pen I'd used to sign our marriage certificate 18 years earlier. The symmetry felt appropriate, closing a circle that had defined most of my adult life. What happens now? Now you're officially divorced, the house is yours, the financial accounts are divided, and you're free to start over. Sarah collected the documents, organizing them into neat stacks. Any regrets? About the divorce? No. About the way it happened? I considered the question. I wish it hadn't been so public, but Jennifer made her choices. And Douglas Kane? What about him? Any word on what happened to him? Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in Richmond. Insurance industry won't touch him. And your wife? Ex-wife, I corrected. Still in California, as far as I know. We haven't spoken since she left. The walk back to my car felt lighter somehow, as if 18 years of accumulated weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The divorce was final, the house was mine, and my future was no longer entangled with someone who'd chosen betrayal over commitment. Regional Insurance had weathered the scandal with typical corporate efficiency, instituting new policies about workplace relationships while quietly encouraging the involved parties to find employment elsewhere. My own position had stabilized after a few months of careful behavior and consistent performance reviews. Patricia Mills had even approached me about a promotion to senior systems analyst, a role that would involve more responsibility and significant salary increase. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jennifer's affair had ultimately benefited my career by removing the distraction of a failing marriage. That evening, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine, watching the news while the December wind rattled the windows. The Christmas tree was gone, replaced by normal furniture and the kind of peace that came from living alone. My phone buzzed with a text from Dave Martinez. "Drinks Friday? New bar downtown supposed to be good?" I typed back, "Sure, time to start living again." The response came immediately. "About time, man. You deserve better than what happened." He was right, of course. I did deserve better than a wife who'd chosen her boss over her husband, better than 3 months of lies and deception, better than the public humiliation of a company Christmas party. But I'd also learned something valuable from the experience. Sometimes the worst moments of your life clear the path for the best ones to follow. Sometimes destruction is just another word for renovation. And sometimes the price of dignity is worth paying, regardless of the cost. 3 months later, I was dating Lisa Rodriguez, a systems administrator from a competing insurance firm who'd heard about my situation through industry connections. She was intelligent, ambitious, and refreshingly honest about her own career goals and personal expectations. "I heard about what happened at Regional Insurance," she said during our second dinner date. "That took courage. Or stupidity. Courage," she insisted. "Most people would have just suffered in silence or fought it out in court. You chose transparency. I chose public humiliation. You chose truth. There's a difference." She was right, though it had taken months for me to recognize it. The video that had destroyed my marriage had also freed me from a relationship built on lies and compromise. The financial cost had been significant, but the emotional relief was invaluable. By the time our divorce was finalized, Jennifer's affair with Douglas Kane had become corporate legend at Regional Insurance, a cautionary tale told during ethics training and human resources seminars. Both participants had vanished from the local insurance industry, their reputations destroyed, and their careers effectively ended. I'd moved on with dignity intact and a future full of possibility. Sometimes, that's the best revenge of all. 2 years after the Christmas party incident, I received a promotion to Director of Information Technology, a role that came with significant authority and a salary that quickly restored the financial losses from my divorce. The house had appreciated in value, my retirement accounts were growing again, and I was engaged to Lisa Rodriguez, planning a wedding based on mutual respect rather than youthful infatuation. The last I'd heard of Jennifer, she was working retail in San Diego and had ended her relationship with Douglas Kane within 6 months of their respective terminations. Douglas himself had disappeared entirely from professional circles, rumored to be selling cars or working in customer service somewhere outside the insurance industry. Their story had become a cautionary tale within Regional Insurance, frequently referenced during workplace ethics training and management seminars. The company had implemented strict policies regarding supervisor-subordinate relationships, largely in response to the liability issues created by their affair. "You ever regret how you handled it?" Lisa asked one evening as we planned our wedding reception. "The public exposure, I mean." "Sometimes I wish it had been more private," I admitted. But Jennifer had been lying to me for months. The public accountability was probably the only way to get the truth. "And you're okay with the financial cost?" "Best money I ever spent." I pulled her closer on the couch. "Buying my freedom was worth every penny." She laughed, the sound filling our living room with warmth that had been missing for years before Jennifer's betrayal. "When you put it that way, it sounds like a bargain." It was. Some things are more valuable than money. Such as? Self-respect, honesty, the ability to trust the person you're planning to marry. Lisa kissed me softly, a gesture that carried promises I believed completely. I love you, Michael Patterson. I love you too. And I meant it, in a way I hadn't been able to mean anything for the final years of my marriage to Jennifer. The difference between settling for someone and choosing someone had become clear through the painful process of divorce and recovery. As we finalized plans for our wedding reception, coincidentally to be held at the same hotel where my first marriage had ended, I reflected on the strange paths that life sometimes takes. The worst night of my marriage had led to the best decision of my adult life. The public humiliation had ultimately restored my dignity. The financial cost had been an investment in my future happiness. Jennifer's affair had destroyed my trust in her, but it had also freed me to find someone worthy of that trust. Douglas Kane's predatory behavior had cost him everything, exactly as it should have. And I had learned that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the best outcomes. The Christmas party recording that had once represented the destruction of my marriage now felt like documentary evidence of my liberation. The pain was real, the betrayal was genuine, but the consequences had been exactly what they needed to be. Justice, it turned out, sometimes looked a lot like revenge. But mostly, it looked like freedom.